I'm Robert Kraig. I'm Executive Director of Citizen Action of Wisconsin.
And I'm Sulma Arias. I am the Executive Director of People's Action. And we are an organizing revival. So we have been here in Wisconsin for the last 3 days. And the reason why you brought us here to Wisconsin is because, as part of this conversation and this efforts around the organizing revival, which really for People's Action has really been about, refocusing, renewing the craft of organizing. But we just spent 2.5 days with you here and 9 other states to really have a conversation. Can you share a little bit about why being here with 9 other states in the Midwest was so important to you, to Wisconsin, and to the movement, and share a little bit about what just happened here the last 2.5 days?
Well, the Midwest has gone through a lot since the 1980s. A lot of changes were made that pulled out the rug from the multiracial working class, average working people who had a lot of good manufacturing jobs in this region. And a lot of folks, because they haven't had deep interactions and conversations, have been misled to believe that somehow the fault is someone else, like immigrants, like people of color, right? Anyone that can be othered. When in fact there were deliberate decisions made by an economic elite in this country to take a bigger and bigger share of rewards. And the only way to deal with this problem in democracy, because it leads to some people voting for authoritarian candidates, let's face it, is the craft of organizing, to have real conversations. We used to be, foreign observers used to say about this country in the 19th century, the early 20th century, that everyone belonged to something and was involved with their neighbors in different kinds of associations. A nation of joiners was the term in the 50s. And that's been lost with social media, modern mass media, and television watching. People are isolated. And they're making meaning through propagandistic appeals on digital media, in television ads, on TV channels now that are completely based on ideology and based on dividing us. And so the only solution is what was at the core of democracy in the first place, is groups of people getting together and developing meaning together and then changing our government, influencing it, standing between the general public and our elected government. And that's been lost, and it can only be recreated by talking to people, one person at a time.
Yeah. The thing that was incredible to me about what we just experienced with Wisdom, the Gamaliel Network, and the People's Action Network was that 8 or 9 states came together, and a lot of people, what we're experiencing, which you name, is the separation, the isolation. We working sometimes in the same state and not being able to connect. Like, what difference does it make when we bring our power together? How can that be, as part of a renewal or with the way that we're organizing to the future? What could we do different? And some of that we talked about over the last 2 days, but what is new about this way, about even bringing 9 states in the Midwest together? What do you think are some opportunities for us that maybe we haven't tapped into yet?
Well, if we're going to restore democracy, which is building organized groups of people working together on in their actual self-interest and making meaning about what kind of society we should be, right? And getting together across various lines, racial lines, economic lines, etc. Then we have to invite a lot of people back in, because it's not really democracy if you have a right to vote. Let's say we pick the right to vote, and people are getting the information from cable news and from social media and from various kinds of propaganda, warring propaganda that they're running into. And so really, we need to restore that. We need a lot more people off the sidelines, because a lot of people who are the most engaged think engagement means making a statement on social media, means paying attention to what's on prime time on their preferred cable network or their radio or preferred radio program. That doesn't do it. It's talking to other people and being involved in groups, right? And really developing a shared consensus on what we need to do and acting together at the scale we need to do to influence, to be able to back down billionaires and large corporations and their influence and their control and their extraction from everything. And so that's why we were meeting. We need to restore that. There's no other way, and that starts with knocking on someone's door.
Yeah, and that's great because that's exactly, so we met for 2.5 days. Some of the themes that came out were some of the themes that you're naming. It's like we need more power, we need more people engaged with their organizations and into creating that strong democracy. And so today we did just that. So this morning we've been with your team here in Wisconsin doing just that. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of winning with Wisconsin in this election, why that is important, and what we practice? Say a little bit about what we did this morning on the doors here in Wisconsin and why it's important in this election.
So Wisconsin's been a premier battleground state for 20 years, which is unusual, and because it's very close. And it's not just about that great white whale that news media talks about all the time, the swing voter. She's a very conflicted kind of person that holds a lot of inconsistent views, if you've ever listened in a focus group. A much bigger impact is whether people decide to engage and vote or not.
Wow.
It's a much larger group of people. It's a tiny little fraction that's kind of this cross-pressured. I like some of Trump and I like some of Kamala Harris. And so we were out here in Milwaukee. The north side of Milwaukee is where most African Americans in Wisconsin live. They came here during the Great Migration from really the authoritarian South, the Jim Crow South, and they came for plentiful manufacturing jobs. And our economic elites pulled the rug out from under them by outsourcing these jobs overseas and creating a corporate-dominated free trade regime, and they've lost all that prosperity. We went from having the most prosperous African American middle class in the country in Milwaukee to the worst white-black disparities in the country because of the changes that were made in the economy to benefit the Elon Musks and the other billionaires and the corporate pharmaceutical manufacturers, et cetera, all the people who did this. And so you and our members and our organizers were out talking to those folks about the stakes, because on social media, people are trying to divide them. They're trying to tell them that Kamala Harris isn't a real black person. She just decided to be black for political advantage when she went to an HBCU.
That's right.
She's the proud member of a black sorority that's been highly influential in the empowerment of black women for generations. And they don't know that because they're being exposed to this trash on digital media that's funded by the people who benefit from the current system and are getting most of the benefits of our system.
You know, the beautiful things on the doors today were just people who would open the doors, see what this was about, and then just come and have conversations with us. It was really, that's where, and it's some of the hardest work to do, because people sometimes don't have time. It was it's beautiful weather here today, but it was getting hot on the doors. But it's really what's going to make a difference, right? Like when you get out of the small screen and actually have conversations with people, and that's what Deep Canvas does. So today is a national day of action for us to get on the doors, and that's why I'm here from Kansas. To talk to people in Wisconsin, because as Wisconsin goes, so goes the country.
And let me give you an example. You were talking with them about energy burden. That's a word, right? That means that the amount of your income that you pay for your electricity and your heat and your cooling, if you're lucky enough to have air conditioning. And African Americans in Milwaukee, because they've been redlined and because they have the lowest incomes, they have the most energy inefficient houses, the older housing stock, and the lowest incomes, which means when white people pay a little under 2% of their income for electricity and heating and cooling, they're paying 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%, and you can't make the other bills if you're doing that. That's the big utility that's been given a monopoly and just wants to build more fossil fuel plants. It's trying to do that now and is a Fortune 500 company, whereas if we do a Green New Deal for real, we can create affordable renewable energy that people control. We can do weatherization of their houses so that they are much more energy efficient. That's not in the utilities' interest. They have less product to sell. They can't justify building more, in this case, natural gas plants.
And that was the number one. People really reacted to healthcare and utilities. And it was really good conversations around why we're paying so much for utility costs. A really good time.
And
in the
who's
doors.
doing it.
And who's doing it,
And
yeah.
what the solution is,
Yep,
which is
and-
us coming
yep.
together and building
Exactly.
power together.
Absolutely. What else do you want us to touch on?
Tell us why we're all in for Harris, why we need to like Kamala Harris,
Yeah.
and what's at stake.
And of course, the reason why we're here also because today is the first day of deep canvas door knocking to turn out the vote for Kamala Harris, because we understand, and People's Action, Citizen Action Wisconsin, and many other of our affiliates have endorsed Kamala because we understand that it's about two futures. But tell us what this election means for Wisconsin and for the leaders that Citizen Action works with.
Well, it means having a situation where we continue to build power. We're not giving away our agency to Kamala Harris or any other elected official.
Yep.
So Kamala Harris, even though she's taken a lot of positions we approve of and come in our direction in a lot of ways, as President Biden did, still, if we are not building power and putting pressure on, it won't happen, because there's a lot of
right.
other counter pressure. So people this is what's been sold to people. If you don't think the candidate will do, if you just elect them and you just walk away from democracy and they'll just handle it for you, there's no person that will do that. Even Bernie Sanders,
Yeah.
talking about a Democratic socialist, can't do that on his own. He's
Yeah.
one leader. So if she is elected and we keep building and we build after the election, people stay involved and join organizations like Citizen Action Wisconsin and
Yeah.
other People's Action affiliates, then we have a pathway to do things.
Exactly.
Like deal with the climate crisis, make healthcare affordable, which means decommodifying it,
Yeah.
getting the insurance companies, big pharma, the big hospitals out of decision making. Same with the climate crisis. If the utilities get to decide and the oil companies, we're just going to keep burning oil until not only is there nothing left to burn, we won't have a habitable planet.
That is right. So in other words, electing Kamala provides better terrain for us to continue to organize and to build the communities and the future that we need and deserve.
And people make a mistake. They'll say to us, well, she's bad on this, she's bad at this. Then get involved, because
Get
then we
involved.
can
And stay
continue to
involved.
push her.
And stay involved after she wins.
You
Yeah.
wash your hands of it, you're essentially siding with all the things you don't like.
That's
Because
true.
nothing is going to change if you're not involved.
And that's where community organizing and the work that you do every day here in Wisconsin, not just during an election, really matters. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us.